And so you've got some key decisions to make as that kind of business owner. And typically when we're talking about a solo business owner or even a small online business or an e-commerce business, you're not really talking about a lot of people. So every move that you make impacts a great deal of the business, right? I mean, adding a key piece of software or adding on an employee or adding a new product line makes a significant impact. And so one of the things you can do, you can reach a point in this kind of business where you can no longer grow your sales due to the amount of time and energy you're able to invest. So in other words, if you invest, if you're putting in 12-hour days and you get to the point where everything that you have working right now, right, you can't do anything else to raise your sales without adding on something, right? So there's a point at which you max out everything you can do with your own effort and with your team, your present team, and with your resources. And this typically means that you're going to have to do some purchasing, right? So it typically means you're going to have to get some kind of tools. And I'm basically talking about software tools. You're going to have to get some kind of training. So maybe there's something that you can learn that's going to help you to leverage your time better, that's going to help you to leverage your assets better, it's going to help you to get more sales with the efforts that you have. And you're going to have to leverage some kind of talent. So in other words, you might have to get some people onto your team. You might have to add on people. You might have to get those people other people that can work for them. In other words, it's going to be some mixture in order for you to grow your business of tools, of training, in other words, things you need to know, or then other people in order to stay at your current level and then to grow, right? So there is a point in which every business does reach that point. And you may not have to have the timing exactly right, but you do have to think about when this day is for your business or your trade or your enterprise. Whatever you're doing, you have to be thinking ahead for this point, because when you get to that point in your sales and you can't grow your sales anymore with what you're doing, what you're waiting for then is for the market to kind of catch up with you. You're waiting for somebody to eat into the sales that you're getting. So don't think that just because you're at this level and you're at the level at which you want to be, anytime you are going to be in an information marketing business, or you're going to be in some kind of business where you're building websites or you're building market share based on something that's not tangible, it to some degree it's going to be easy to come in after you and catch you, right? Because the investment tends to be low in terms of what you have to build. The investment tends to be low in terms of time, if somebody can kind of figure out what you're doing. And so if you're at a level at which you want to be, then the likelihood of someone finding out or pinching off some of that market is pretty high if you stay at that level. So it always behooves all of us, right, to be looking to grow, right? We always have to be looking to grow our sales, to grow our level of leads, to grow the amount of influence that we have. And so that really does take these three things. It takes tools, it takes training, and it takes talent in some measure. And the question is always going to be, right, how do you activate these things? So how do you take these three things and make the decision about them and put them into place? Let's first talk about talent, right? And we're talking about people. And so basically we're talking about you can fill the gap, right, in your growth by hiring an employee. So in other words, and I'm not talking about entities right now. I'm talking not talking about whether or not you're sole proprietor or LLC or anything like that. But I'm basically talking about you bringing on someone who's going to work for you full or part-time. They're going to be on your team. So they're not going to be working for anybody else. They're going to be working for you. And so this is where you're basically agreeing to have someone on your team on a regular basis. So in other words, they're sort of dedicated to your company. They're dedicated to your trade. They're dedicated to your business. They're looking to make your business work, and they're not necessarily going to be working outside of there. Although, if you're talking about somebody who's working part-time, then that might be a little different. But you're talking about hiring an employee. So you're talking about payroll. You're talking about making sure they get paid regardless of the results, right? So in other words, you're committing to this person financially, and they're committing to your projects. And that commitment doesn't necessarily mean, well, if we if we make lots of money, do you get paid? When you talk about bringing on an employee, as long as they're doing their job, you're committing to pay them. right? Now, the benefit, of course, of having that person is that you sort of got them for a specific amount of time. So you're not waiting for them to finish other projects. You're not waiting for them to finish work that they're doing with other people. They're sort of dedicated to you, and so you have their labor for that period of time. And part of your task, right, at that point is you've got to be available, and you've got to be good at providing feedback to that person. Right, so that person can improve on their work, so they can do the kinds of things that will help you not only to grow according to your original agreement when you hired them, but so that when they see something in your business, right, when they see something they can improve, when they see something that they can inject, that you are then able to allow them, based on their experience, to make that input so that your business can change. And then, I mean, now, and if you're going to do this, right, if you're going to have an employee, you're going to have somebody working for you, obviously, you have to have well-defined processes. And it doesn't matter what your business is. If your business or your trade or your way of generating income or your information marketing practice is basically, let's say that you produce Kindle books, right? That process needs to be so well defined, and it needs to be written down, and it needs to be something that is pretty much set in stone. You do the same thing every time, so that when you bring somebody on your team, what you're basically doing is you're handing them a checklist, and you're going over the checklist. So you're bringing on people to handle something that is defined. So if you're going to have an employee, you before you get to that point, before you hire someone on, before you bring somebody on your team, you've got to have your processes down of whatever it is you're doing to generate income. Now, you should also know your profit margins well, right? Because what you're going to need to do at times is, obviously, one of the things, incentives matter, right? So that's the common, economic principle that we all operate under in business, right? Incentives matter. So if you're going to have an employee, yes, you're going to pay them a salary, and yes, that should be their incentive to do the very best job you can, but that's not human nature. Human nature does respond to incentives. And so if you want someone to do a little bit more, you want them to go the extra mile, you're going to need to be able to add on to what it is that they're doing. You're going to have to add on to their pay, and you're going to have to incentivize them in some way to go the extra mile. But before you do that, though, you do have to know where your profits are. You have to know on a regular basis what you expect to be coming in. You have to know what you're paying out. You have to know your costs, expenses, and you definitely got to know what you've got to pay your employee or employees. And so in order to do that, you've got to know your profit margins. You've got to know when, let's say that you've got to expand your business, and then your costs are going to rise in order to expand that business. You've got to know what you're going to have to pay out, and then what's going to come in as a result. And then part of your job is going to be, basically, when you decide to grow your business by bringing on an employee, your job is to manage this individual, right? So that's the hat you have to wear. So it's not just going to be what you're doing to make and sell it. Your job then becomes to manage an individual, right? So even if you have a manager and you want to have that manager to manage other people, you've still got to manage the manager, right? So bringing on an employee means that on a day-to-day basis, your job is not only to generate sales, your job is to make sure they're doing their job, right? They're doing it to the best of their ability. Now,